Welcome,
Oh,
everybody, to this edition of Beers with Bill. It is my great pleasure to welcome back to the show Rob Hern, co-founder, head brewmaster, Short Finger Brewing, also my personal beer guru and good friend. Rob, welcome back to the show.
why, thank you very much. Beer guru, what? That's crazy. That's crazy, man. And
It
like, I'm
is.
not I don't go with the brewmaster that like, because I have no formal education, right? Like, I just learned to do this like with a mop bucket. Like that's all this beer is just me hacking around making it so no true formal education, but I mean, other than working in breweries and whatnot, which is how I prefer to learn.
Well, you've taught me an awful lot about brewing and beer over the years, and we've had great conversations, Rob. So talk to me a little bit
Yeah.
about Midnight Bike Club.
Um, Midnight Bike Club. I don't think ever has actually been the same. Every time I release it, I change it because I'm like, I didn't like this. So it is small pale ale. That's what we call it. It's 4%, but it's pretty heavily dry hopped. Um, and this round, I did Amarillo and Simcoe. So I've been trying to make this one featuring kind of old school hops. I mean, I know like Amarillo and Simcoe, but like not like Saws or like Tettnang, like European, but like old school North American that were in original IPAs and whatnot, and just trying to play around with those hops, but kind of steering clear of Cascade still. Haven't really gone too heavy with that one, but who knows? Maybe the next round I will. But it's essentially meant to be, I call it the beer of Kitchener because I like to encourage people to buy 4-packs when they bike by. And I'm like, you should go drink this in the park. That's what I do. I like to drink Midnight Bike Club in Victoria Park. That's like one of my favorite things to do in the summer. Biking along. Yeah, there's nothing better as far as I'm concerned, but
I hear you on that one. There is nothing better. An ice cold beer in a park. It's great that we're now allowed to do that legally.
yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. That was I always thought it was weird that, I mean, hobos could drink in the park and they never get in trouble, but if I like cracked a beer in the park and the cops saw me, I'd get a ticket. I'm like, what? I'm not doing anything here. I'm just hanging out, relaxing. Yeah.
Yeah, I am hearing that. So tell me, this is an opinion question. We're 2 years into the pandemic and all the changes that have happened. How has the craft beer industry changed over the last 2 years?
Well, I mean, honestly, it is, I'm not even sure if it's the same industry. Like it feels so different to me. And I feel like I have no clue where it's going anymore. Um, yeah, that's been probably like in the last just like 6 months of trying to bounce back from the pandemic as things open. And after spending so much time not planning, because it was like, how am I even going to plan for complete unknown? And then looking out at it and just being like, I actually have no clue where this industry is going anymore. I got so sidelined by so many things that I was just not prepared for on a small business kind of scale and small brewery. And yeah, I don't know. Like that's the craziest thing about the pandemic to me. After it all, the dust settles, I feel like I'm not even sure what industry I'm in anymore. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a marketing and like promotions company half the time.
Well, you have made a significant number of changes, like you said, during the pandemic, but now as we're starting to move to what would be called a new normal. I mean, you're doing music shows now.
Yep.
The one day I was there talking to you, you were getting set up for a boot camp. Is it yoga?
I was like I don't know, what's the one that they kick your ass? The one that they make you do a lot of terrible things and you like sweat a lot. I think it's just called a boot camp. I think it's a boot camp. Yeah. Where you're just doing like, I don't know, jumping jacks and burpees and
Physical.
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually I went to half a class, or no, 3/5 of a class. I did 3 out of 5 rounds of this, like, you run around this gym in circles and like you have to do 20 like sit-ups, and then you have to do like 100 like knee touches, and then you like, and after 3 I was like, I can't do anymore, this is fucking terrible, I'm going to die, and I stopped. So that's what they do to you. But those people, after they did that, like, drank a whole bunch. It made me laugh, actually.
Yeah.
Like, you did all this workout, and now you're all just pounding beer, which, good for you. Good for you. Well-deserved beers.
Yeah. So you've done a number of music shows in the space as well.
Yep.
And how are they going for you?
Sorry?
How are they going?
Are they going? Oh, okay. It's weird that it took me this long to do it. Because if you've been to Short Finger, our like warehouse and like just kind of like weird kind of punk vibes that I kind of try and make happen, like the warehouse itself, I'm like, this, it makes sense that we're doing this. And that's the funny thing to me. And it took the pandemic and some like pretty bad months there at the start of the year for me to be like, well, what are we doing with this space? And how are we going to try and engage new people to come out? Because that was the main thing to me, just like, let's get some new people out, because the current group that are still supporting has just slowly gotten smaller and smaller and smaller as COVID dragged out longer and longer. It felt like we were just kind of losing engagement and interest from people. So the shows kind of, to me, made 100% sense, and they're fun for me because like I get to just watch music. And I mean, it does often end up with like me working like a 12 to 16 hour day. So sometimes that's not great, but it's really nice, especially if, random shows where we had this weird band called Crywank come in, like one of the earlier shows, and the group of people that showed up, never seen them before. Like, I didn't know anyone in the audience really, other than the few people who were promoting it and whatnot. And they crushed Lando. Like, they were just like, they were drinking other stuff too, but they, like, a huge group of them was just like crushing Lando. Thought it was the best thing ever, which was very it was one of those things at the time. I needed a pickup, and I was like, oh, this is nice that random people who have never been here before actually get this beer, or actually into it. Because sometimes I feel like I'm just like making these goofy, weird beers, and there's like 9 people who who actually care about them. Which is there's been a lot of discouraging moments through the last 2 years. So it's been uplifting. I've been pretty happy on that side.
Now, I was blessed on Saturday because I have finally got to meet Miss Mabel.
It's true. Actually, she was blowing me a kiss right when the video came on. She heard me come in and then apparently wouldn't go to bed, so had to come down.
Well, that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Your sort of scheduling yourself has changed. Kat was mentioning that you now take 2 days a week where you spend it just with her.
Yeah, and then randomly on Tuesdays, I book myself in 2 places at once when I'm supposed to have my days off. But that's a real Rob Hern thing to do.
This is sort of the second time, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we appreciate the fact that you did make it here. Thank you.
I wish I wouldn't have had the right equipment to do it, but I wish I had have done the live stream from the actual event.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have actually been kind of cool, but I don't have any fancy equipment. I'm just on my laptop. And anyways, it was supposed to end at 8, but it was obviously going a little late. So the timing was just that weird, like, well, I'll just do both of them. We'll make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we appreciate the fact that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. And
yeah, no, I really don't mind at all, Bill, obviously. But doing 2 days a week with Mabel has been lovely, to be honest. It's been especially when things were pretty like slow at the brewery and it was getting down about what was going on there in kind of January, February. It was nice to have a focus point just away from the brewery and what was going on there. So I wasn't just, because like prior to Mabel, like, yeah, Kat and I hung out a lot, but let's be honest, I worked a lot, like 7 days a week, all the time, and like was just like always in it. And I think it was like it's starting a business, it's starting a brewery. I'm not like asking for sympathy on that, but like definitely with the way things went, it's been nice to be able to have something not completely tied into that at all.
Yeah. I know how hard you worked when you started the brewery.
Yeah.
There were many days.
You were there at the beginning. Yeah.
Many days that you and I were having conversations at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I don't usually make it to 1 in the morning anymore. I'll be honest. I usually fall asleep a lot earlier than that now. Yeah.
I can well imagine that. But I mean, I think it's great that you've be able to take time to spend with your daughter. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So. It's been lovely. Cool.
So what's a typical day look like for you now?
Well, to be honest, usually I wake up and I drive Mabel to daycare. And then I go to the brewery and try and remember all the things that I was thinking about last night because I've stopped writing the list for some reason, which is a terrible, terrible thing that for whatever reason, I used to write them all the time. And now I'm like, oh, I was supposed to email so-and-so. I need to arrange this show. I need to talk to the city about this. Oh, that just reminded me, actually, I need to go to the city and pay my business license like tomorrow because it's due on June 1st. Actually, it was due today. So I need to start writing lists again. But essentially, that's usually how I start my day, trying to remember all the things I was like, what did I need to do today? Okay, yeah. And there's usually 17 things. And then I'll try and brew, or it's package. Honestly, it's just like nonstop packaging, which sucks. I fucking hate it. Yeah.
I don't know too many people who enjoy packaging.
Yeah, and they should come work at Short Finger, and then they'll really hate packaging.
Well, Sam's got a new $1 million expensive packaging machine. Maybe you should like keg it all up, run up and package it on his system.
I would love to. Yeah. That sounds great. Absolutely.
Now you still do most of your packaging in short can, right?
Yeah, we're doing short cans still. I don't know, like, show of hands, like, I guess, like, I prefer short cans over tall boys. Like, I always have, and I don't get what's going on and why Ontario has always been so just tall boys. And I know it stems out of the LCBO because the LCBO likes the single tall boy option for their shelves and whatnot. And I mean, that's been going on back in the day from when I was at Great Lakes, like Canuck and all those original, like the Devil's Pale Ale, even, which was like 2006. But I prefer my beer not to get warm in my hand, for one. And like a short can's kind of the perfect amount of beer, unless it's like, and even if it is, I'd rather, like, this beer, the black is beautiful in a 473 mil. I'm not going to be able to drink all this. That's crazy talk. Like, there's no way I'll get through this. And that's my beer. And I do enjoy it. But, like, no, I'll probably drink half. So, short cans. That's all I'm getting at, short cans.
Yeah, and Ed's making mention that you also still do them in a 4-pack.
Yeah. The 4-pack thing is more, we'll do the like random, like the Darkest Timeline series and the like bigger beers with the single option with the 4-pack. But we found that with just doing singles and the short cans, it was kind of annoying of just like, this way we move through beer at a better like clip. And then a lot of people were like, well, I would just like grab this and this and this, which is fine. But often, like, depending on the day you walk in, there's either like 2 cans in the fridge or there's 6 cans in the fridge. And so trying to like do this like variable like grab thing never really works out with our inventory. So I just have stayed away from it and just stuck with the 4-packs. Most people don't seem to care.
What I was saying there is I'd like the yours come in 4, whereas typically 355s are sold in 6.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas,
Yeah.
you got
I
4
don't even know
tallies
why I
or
did
6
that.
shorties. So
Yeah.
like
I have no idea why I did that. I don't know, 4-packs made sense. Yeah. Cat's creeping at me from the doorway over here.
Yeah. We can say hello.
Hi,
Hi, Kat.
how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just
Yeah.
regretting all the choices that
Miss
have led me
Mabel
to
went to
this.
sleep so quickly?
Oh, I mean, probably not. But like, she went into her room to talk to herself in her crib.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
That's the
She
best way to
talks to
have it.
herself a lot.
Yeah.
She talks a lot. Doesn't make any sense, but
Yeah, it's not
So-
work.
yeah.
Which side of the family do you get that from?
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, the nonsense might be me, but the talking.
The incessant babbling is definitely from this
Yeah.
one. Yeah. He
So,
is
Rob.
asleep.
What's the main thing you're tackling right now at work?
The main thing I'm tackling right now, honestly, is efficiency in packaging and trying to balance the cost of packaging equipment versus the volume of beer we make. It's this like real shit spot to be in where we just don't make enough beer to make any of the equipment financially viable to really do. Yeah. So I've got some ideas, and I'm working on something new where like I can get a small packaging line for about 20,000 American, and it'll do about 6 to 8 cans a minute. Now, I built a canning line that does all of our mixed fermentation stuff, and now I keep them totally separate so that when you're drinking Midnight Bike Club, all the equipment that touch that doesn't touch for one, like Black is Beautiful, because it's funky, or Aliens Exist, or Lando, or any of that, because I have it all marked and set aside differently so that we're not accidentally infecting that beer with Brett or Lacto or PDO, because this is like that's actually something I think about almost every day. When I'm going to have a massive infection because of our size and equipment and how we're doing things is so just prone to this. It hasn't really happened too often, but it is my constant fear of sending out beer and then finding out in 3 weeks that it had a Brett infection or that it had a lacto infection. We had one batch of Catherine the Mild that luckily I caught it the day we released it, and only a handful of it went out. But it had a lacto infection, and it didn't show up until the cans were conditioned, and now I don't condition that beer anymore, unfortunately, which sucks because Catherine the Mild, as an English style beer, is very that style would be lovely if that was can conditioned, a light proper carbonation on it. But now I just force carb it and run it through the same way I do the pale ales. I don't even know what question you asked, actually. I don't know why I rambled on about infections, but hey.
No, that's exactly what I was asking, is what are the things that you're dealing with right now?
Yes.
And having brewed with you, which has been a lot of fun and pleasure, and understanding the way the setup is in there, that's always a constant concern, and you're always constantly cleaning.
It really is all I do. I swear, it is all I do.
Well, I've been there a couple of times when you were swearing at a canning machine, but I would have.
Well, yeah, there's that too. There's swearing at the canning line, cleaning things, and then trying to find time to brew again. That's the other thing right now, is just finding time to brew. But I've been really happy with the beers, actually, and I'm happy to see the Midnight Bike Club. The color on it looks lovely, even on all the screens here. The hop aroma on it is bang on. Maybe I won't change it. Maybe I'll make it an Amarillo Simcoe vibe. I am enjoying this batch quite a bit. It's always it's trying to make with all the pale ales we do, trying to make it different from True Believer. Make it different from Baby Yoda, which is why I don't know if all of you have had Dance Robot. It's like our hoppy hazy juice beer, and it features Sabro. And a big part of why I use Sabro was because it expressed as a hop so differently than anything else, that it was just this shows up as a different beer. I don't want to just a lot of IPA breweries are just rotating the same hops, or slight variations of, we did Citra, Mosaic, and Galaxy, and then I did Mosaic, Citra, and Galaxy, and just rotating the same things in different ratios, which there's a reason they do it, because they taste great and people really like it.
Almost like a Groundhog Day, eh?
Yes. And brewing can be a Groundhog Day in general. What am I doing again? Oh, I'm brewing. Oh, I'm canning. Oh, I'm cleaning.
And then no
Which is why stuff
specific
like
order.
this is nice.
Now you've done a few of these. Is there any question that you wish that people would have asked you that hasn't been asked?
I don't know about that. I've never like my expectations on coming into this is I'm just like, well, hopefully somebody will just let me ramble and they'll just like control the conversation somewhat so that I'm not just like constantly spewing nonsense. I really don't mind constantly spewing nonsense though.
Okay. Well, now that Terry and Emma have made it back from the show that you were at,
Yeah, they
have-
heard me spew a whole bunch of nonsense in front of a crowd of people.
that's
Yeah.
what it's all about, though.
It is. It is.
So I'm going to ask you Terry's usual question. What beer have you tried that has made you go, damn, I wish I'd made that beer?
You're gonna have to give me a sec on that.
That's okay.
There's a weird one that comes to mind, but I actually don't want to brew it.
And which one is that?
So I had a bunch of beer from Blood Brothers dropped off, and they did a triple IPA, and I can't even remember the name of it. But I actually like was in the brewery cleaning up, was cleaning shit, and drinking this triple IPA that Mike and I split because I was like, there's no way I'm drinking all of this. And I called Pat like after my second sip and was just like, yo, dude, this is like delicious. You absolutely nailed this triple IPA. And I've never said those words ever, because those words should never be said. But yeah, I would say it was a triple IPA that Pat made at Blood Brothers, oddly enough. And then otherwise, I'd say Marco Polo from Indie Ale House had a can of that the other day, and it was tasting lovely. And since we're doing the lager program, I'm always kind of looking at how the lagers are coming across, and just they're my constant worry for infection, to be honest. But I'm really happy with this batch of Dead Punk, the low ABV dry hop lager. But it's like finding the right level of hop component with bitterness and aroma that comes through, but still keeping a very soft and subtle beer. Yeah, I thought the Marco Polo was tasting great. So
Let's talk a little bit about Black is Beautiful.
yeah. Did some of you didn't get this beer? I'm assuming because it was sold out. Graham, sorry, Graham. Oh, Derek took them all on you. Pass it through the screen. So are you guys familiar with what this series was with TWB, Counterpoint, and Block 3? A few of you, I feel like some of you have followed along the way. The original version of this beer was a 4-way collab that Terry and Emma had some of this evening. The original one that was done at Block 3, which was just a straight up Imperial Stout. They didn't let me touch it. They didn't let me make it all weird on everybody. So it was a straight up Imperial Stout. Then we did another batch that was brewed at TWB with the intention that everybody would be aging their portion of the beer in a barrel. So then we would then, after a year's time, can it all up, and we would release 4 versions of this beer that would be the same base beer, but everybody did their own thing on it. So obviously, as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, I'm gonna make this a short finger beer. I'm not gonna just like be like, oh, let's put it in a Jack Daniel's barrel and blah blah blah, you know, like, which, I mean, I'm sure lots of people like that. So, and I think the other guys did like, there was 2 rum barrels. And there was another barrel. I don't know
Okay.
what. Anyways,
What did you
so my version was, hopefully some of you had the beer that I named Necessary Evil. It was one of the original Darkest Timeline beers, and it's the only Darkest Timeline beer that showed up in bottle because I was just getting into canning at the time, and I was still trying to figure out where that was going as a series. But it was a imperial stout with raspberries that was aged in a maple syrup bourbon barrel. And he was in that barrel for, I think, 20 months. But it was a sour imperial stout. So it was super funky and then inoculated with different Brettanomyces strains in that barrel. I emptied that barrel and immediately put the Black is Beautiful beer into the barrel without cleaning it, without rinsing it, without doing anything else to it. So I took TWB's beer, which at the time was like crazy bitter. It was, I was really surprised at how bitter it was. Not that in a bad way, just like the balance of the beer was there. Then it was aged for a year on this, and I do think it picked up a little bit of the raspberry notes, but it has a definitive sour characteristic to it. Not like some of the like crazy sour beers I've done, but like a soft sour, I would say. What I really like about this beer is the nose. I think the nose is extremely deceptive because of the color. No surprise. But shows you the funk and the like barnyard notes that are in the base of this beer. And that being said, that is not something that a lot of people will see or necessarily be receptive to in an imperial stout. I think it is a hard sell, and actually, I don't think it's a hard sell. I know it's a hard sell because that beer took forever to sell. It was not bouncing off the shelves kind of thing, which is unfortunate because I think it's lovely. And no, am I taking a 4-pack of Tall Boys home and crushing it? No, absolutely not. This is a beer with layers and depth to it. But there is, especially when it's like 31 degrees out, should definitely go to the beach and drink a can of this. I mean, what are you doing with your life? So the beer itself kind of has that base imperial stout notes, but only in like, I get like maybe like a roasty coffee note, little bit of it, and kind of cocoa, like cooking chocolate, like cocoa dry.
Milk chocolate cocoa.
Yeah. And that plays into the finish, which does have a bitterness, and that bitterness also ties right into the funky barnyard notes, kind of that like horse blanket, little bit of hay, kind of wet hay going on. There's a lot of layers in this beer. If you let it warm up, it's going to get more expressive. The sour comes out a little bit more, kind of comes across with a little bit of like raspberry leaves. That's what I pick up with it, which also ties into the bitterness on the finish. I think it's a lovely beer, but I do think it is the furthest thing from a beginner beer at Short Finger. Like if you showed up and were like, I got to go get all the Black is Beautiful beers because you were really into that, that'd be awesome. But then you'd be like, well, I'll get this Short Finger beer, never heard of them. You wouldn't be really thrown off or be really happy, depending on who you are. Hopefully, really happy.
This is fantastically complex, as you're saying. The sour raspberry sort of threw me because I was trying to place it.
Yeah. And that is all like I said, it's all because of the second use barrel. And if any of you, people who had Necessary Evil, that still is like a crazy sour beer in terms of how sour it was. It reminds me, and I if I could, I would have entered that beer into like a competition as a Flemish like Brune, if the color wasn't so dark. Just in the notes that came off it, to me it was like Flanders red, like Flemish Brune vibes, depending on, and you're just not expecting it with the color of it. And the same thing with this, but much more subtle in the sour notes. And I mean that hopefully everybody who's here is used to Short Finger sour, so this should be an easy go for most of us.
You are completely reminding me of all the things I've missed in the last 2 years of not being able to stop in and see you. There are so many of your beers that I wish I had in my cellar right now because I didn't get to town.
Yeah, the last 2 years were a bummer.
They certainly were. Can I ask you who's your favorite up-and-coming brewer is?
Favorite upcoming. I mean, I guess like they're not really upcoming at this point because they've been going for almost a year, but I am really happy to see Stillfields becoming a thing. And he's like pretty well known anyways, coming out of Bellwoods. But someone who's going into like Saison strains, grisettes, and traditional kind of farmhouse style brewing, much in the same way that Calumet, Sonnin Hill. I'd say they're like very similar vibes. In fact, like when I look at their labels, I'm like, you guys just made the same labels with different logos, didn't you? It's this like hippie folk vibe that I think that people like, which is totally fine, but I'm not gonna do it. So it's kind of, I like where they're at, and I like the beers they're coming out with, and I like the cleanness of what's going on there. But I wouldn't say he's up and coming because they've been almost a year now. It's got to be pretty close.
Yeah.
But whenever I see anyone doing that style, I'm always impressed, worried, and kind of like, will it work? Will you be able, like, and I haven't made it up to actually check it out, which is on my list. Is definitely on my list. You know what? This is the worst part of the last 2 years. I have had no drive to go out and get to these places and check them out. And with that, there's this like lack of like following along of like, well, who's someone else who's coming on the line who isn't already set up? Like right now, I'm like, I'm actually not sure who is coming out that right now that I'm like, that's going to be interesting. And it's kind of that bummer. I mean, that's also probably has to do with me having a child and being exhausted all the time. But
Goes with the
for sure,
territory.
back like before COVID, I was much more involved in the community, much more aware of what was going on in the community. And like I said earlier, the weird thing about COVID of just feeling like I'm completely disconnected from the industry as a whole, not getting out and seeing people, not knowing what's going on, and that's one of the best parts of the beer industry. And it was just like gone.
Yeah, and it's coming back a little bit, but not the way it was.
No, it doesn't feel the same, and I constantly don't. I'm in the last 6 months in particular, just don't know where the industry is going, but also where Short Finger fits into the industry now. That's the other thing that I do struggle with of like, what are we doing in the grand scheme of what the industry is moving forward to? Because like, I feel like I just want to make Landos and low ABV beers, but I feel completely unaware of anything else going on in the industry and what's happening, which is very frustrating and weird, which is my own just like, I need to get back into it. Yeah.
I hear you on that. Terry and Emma are curious if you know of any other sour stouts.
I had a couple from Belgium. I'm trying to think. And I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head because it was many, many beers ago now. But it was part of Why Necessary Evil. And I don't know if some of you guys will be going way back, but like Raspberry No No and Raspberry Wee Wee, that weird series I did of beers that were kind of the same but different, came out of, and that was after a trip to Belgium where we had a few sour stouts. And I do think it's totally doable. Like I think this version of Black is beautiful, works, and it is really good, but it may not be for everyone. Pulling them off is definitely harder to do because it's like contrasting styles in some way of, of like that roasty bitterness and trying to get it work with a sour note to it is very difficult. And just like on your palate, because they don't necessarily want to go together in a cohesive way. But locally, Half Hours did some. Half Hours definitely did some because I know that Kyle and I talked about it. Rest in peace, Half Hours.
Yes, rest in peace, Half Hours.
Yeah,
wish
it
them
was a
all the
bummer.
best.
I've actually got a beer like still in barrels. It's totally like buried. It's like it's imperial or not imperial. That is probably imperial. Sour or ice sour. We were gonna call it an ice sour, not an ice bock. That like I froze and it's been in barrels now for like 2 years, and it's just like under a bunch of Lando barrels. And I messaged Kyle about it and was like, "Hey, what do you want to do with this now that you're defunct?" And he didn't respond back. So maybe he didn't like being called defunct.
I just think I wish them well in their new adventure, whatever that is. So
Yeah, they've got their new business, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's all like green focus and like yeah, which is great.
Yeah,
which is really good. Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah, we could do
Defunct
defunct.
beer.
Maybe I'll change the name. It was supposed to be called Reducto, but I'll call it defunct.
Rob, I want to thank you for joining me this evening. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I was so glad we had a chance to chat on Saturday. So, It's been good to see you again.
Absolutely. It was great seeing actually the whole crew from kickoff out on the patio there, because I haven't seen a good chunk of those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously COVID, but it's been a while for sure.
It's a lot of fun to have gotten together. Again, Rob, thank you.
No problem.